Welcome in, everyone. Look, if you're trying to cut through the noise and get straight to the facts, you are in exactly the right place today. Right now, we're facing a highly unpredictable 2026 U.S. immigration landscape. The headlines are swirling, policies are shifting, and honestly, it can feel a bit overwhelming. But today, we're bringing absolute clarity to the table. In this explainer, we're going to completely demystify the EB-5 visa and give you a definitive guide to taking control of your residency.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off by navigating the 2026 immigration changes. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the EB-5 visa. After that, we'll compare your immigration options, map out the actual road to citizenship, and wrap up with 5 actionable steps to invest. Making a life and financial decision this massive requires structured, objective facts. So let's jump right in.
Section 1. Navigating 2026 immigration changes. Let's separate the noise from the facts in this new legal landscape.
You know, U.S. immigration policies can change rapidly. We're talking new laws, executive actions, agency rules. There is a lot of tension in the air this year, for sure. But here's the thing. Not every alarming headline applies to every single visa category in the same way. So what do the new laws actually mean for you? We know there's a ton of anxiety out there about unpredictable routes, especially the ones tied to an employer or a family sponsor, where it feels like the rug can just be pulled out from under you at any second. But what if there was a structured alternative that gave you total control?
Well, that brings us to the turning point of our narrative today, the EB-5 visa. The EB-5 is a highly structured immigration program that provides qualified investors a completely separate route to pursue a U.S. green card. It does this by connecting a qualifying investment with U.S. job creation, entirely independent of employer or family sponsors. That word independent is absolutely key here. This is a distinct investment-based pathway.
Section 2. The EB-5 visa explained. We're going to break down the core requirements and the unique benefits.
$800,000. I want to isolate this number for a second because it's your fundamental baseline. According to current rules, this is generally the absolute minimum investment required for what are known as qualifying targeted employment areas or infrastructure projects.
However, if your investment does not fall into one of those specific targeted or infrastructure categories, the standard minimum jumps to $1.05 million. I want to contrast these numbers right out of the gate to ensure total financial transparency. Meeting these investment amounts is the very first major hurdle of the entire program.
But guys, it's not just about the money. We have to look at this crucial metric, 10 full-time jobs. Beyond the capital itself, your investment must absolutely result in the creation of at least 10 full-time jobs for U.S. workers. The whole point of the program is to connect your investment directly with stimulating the U.S. economy, so this job creation element, it's a non-negotiable requirement.
Now, why go through all this? What makes this program uniquely powerful is the massive flexibility it offers. Because there's no specific employer relationship required, it's pretty much ideal for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to control their own destiny. Plus, a qualifying EB-5 investor can generally include their spouse and any unmarried children under 21 as derivative beneficiaries. This means you aren't just securing a visa for yourself, you're securing long-term U.S. residency for your immediate family, and you're doing it without relying on anyone else to sponsor you.
Section 3. Comparing your immigration options. Let's figure out how to find the right fit for your long-term objectives. Context is everything when evaluating immigration pathways, right? So let's objectively contrast the EB-5 with the alternatives to truly grasp its value. First up, the EB-5 versus employment-based immigration. An employment-based route is typically designed for a professional whose primary goal is to work in the U.S. through a specific qualifying employer. The EB-5, on the other hand, is an investment-based strategy. It's built for the person who doesn't want their entire immigration plan to hinge on employment sponsorship. When we map these different visas out side by side, the distinctions become incredibly clear, especially when we talk about employer dependency. For standard employment-based routes, that's a hard yes. You are tied to that employer. For the EB-5, it's a solid no. While the EB-5 demands heavy investment and strict job creation requirements of at least 10 jobs, it essentially buys you absolute independence from an employer. It instantly highlights exactly why families seeking a permanent, self-directed pathway are so drawn to this option.
Section 4. The road to citizenship. Let's understand this multi-stage immigration journey.
Okay, I want to ground us in a bit of realism here. This process is not an overnight flip of a switch. It requires patience, compliance, and strict adherence to the rules over many years. Step 1, if approved, an EB-5 investor initially receives conditional permanent resident status. It's not fully permanent yet. Step 2, you actually have to satisfy the requirements to remove those conditions. You have to prove the investment and job creation happened to get true permanent residence. And finally, Step 3, citizenship. This is a totally separate legal step called naturalization, and it requires you to meet continuous residence, physical presence, and good moral character standards.
Which brings me to a really critical point. The EB-5 does not guarantee a U.S. green card. Meeting the investment amount alone just isn't enough. The program carries real financial risks, and it requires flawless execution. You have to satisfy all the conditions, including the job creation and proving a completely lawful path of funds. I want to be totally transparent with you. This is not some guaranteed purchase of a passport. It's a highly regulated, rigorous immigration process.
And because it is so highly regulated, we've put together an urgent 2026 investor watch list for you. First, you must actively monitor visa availability right now. Even if you're eligible, a lack of available visa numbers can drastically slow down your timeline. You also need to watch out for changes in processing procedures because agencies can rapidly change forms, fees, and processing systems. And lastly, you have to be prepared for incredibly strict documentation standards.
Speaking of those strict documentation standards, establishing exactly where your investment capital came from is arguably the most intense part of an EB-5 case. You have to prove the funds were obtained and transferred lawfully. Think about this paper trail: tax documents, bank statements, business records, property sale documents, loan documentation, inheritance records. You literally have to create a complete airtight narrative showing exactly how your funds were accumulated and moved every step of the way.
Section 5. 5 Steps to Invest. Here's your practical due diligence roadmap.
With laws shifting in 2026, you just cannot rely on informal advice or social media rumors. You need a systematic approach to safely execute your investment. So here are your 5 critical steps. Step 1. Assess personal eligibility. Do your finances and family goals actually align with the program? Step 2. Verify the investment requirement. Make sure the project meets that $800,000 or $1.05 million threshold. Step 3. Conduct independent due diligence on the project itself. Step 4, organize those intense financial records we just talked about. And Step 5, seek professional guidance. Actually, let's zero in on Step 3, due diligence, for a second. There's a fantastic quote from our source material that says, "Immigration eligibility and investment performance are separate considerations. A project may potentially satisfy immigration requirements while still carrying financial risks." This is huge. You cannot evaluate a project just because someone slapped an EB-5 opportunity label on it. You have to look at its financial structure, its business fundamentals, and its repayment strategy completely separately from the immigration perks. Look, navigating all of this, the legal representation, assessing financial risk, evaluating the actual program, it really requires a professional team in your corner. You need immigration attorneys for the legal advice and financial professionals to assess the investment risks. The source material points out that utilizing resources like EB-5 Choice can be a highly useful structured starting point for new investors who are just trying to understand the different stages of evaluating an opportunity and getting prepared for this very complex process.
So that leaves us with one final, pretty massive question to consider today. With the rules shifting in 2026, are you prepared to conduct the rigorous due diligence required to secure your family's U.S. future through the EB-5 program? It is an incredible pathway that offers true independence, but it demands a serious, calculated commitment and expert planning. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, stay focused, and I will see you next time.